All right, Crim 5, let's get this whole online thing, let's get it going. I know it's some craziness going on right now, so, bear with me, and I will do my best to be patient with you guys as well. I understand none of you signed up to take this class online, so I'm going to do the best I can to get the information to you and keep in contact with you and make sure you have all you need to be successful. So let's do chapter 8. And I keep trying to start chapter 8 and then we were doing presentations. Trust me, I have no idea what I'm going to do with that right now either, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there. We're going to go baby steps. But I wanted to get you at least one chapter out. We're going to do a discussion question today as well. Not today, but I mean within the next week as well, and just kind of start to get the ball rolling online so that we're all kind of on the same page. So the communication process is chapter 8. It's kind of ironic because we're dealing with a lot of communication right now. So communication. This is how we get and receive, give and receive information. Okay? All kinds of stuff on here that we, Communication is, certainly in my opinion, in certain circumstances, a more powerful tool than any of the tools that an officer has on his tool belt. Now, granted, if someone's shooting at you, the communication isn't always going to work, but a lot of times you can keep a situation from getting to that point by way of communication. And the officer's most effective weapon certainly can be his or her brain. So there's a bunch of different types of communication, and we're going to talk about these different types of communication. Intrapersonal communication. This is kind of communication that takes place within ourselves. As I think we've talked about this briefly, but I know you all talk to yourselves, so do I. Sometimes it helps us to organize our thoughts, all that kind of stuff. In fact, I'm talking to myself right now because there's actually my dog is in here with me, so maybe, does he count? I don't know. But anyways, we do talk to ourselves to kind of walk ourselves through certain scenarios and situations. Some of us talk to ourselves a little too much, but that's a whole other story. Okay. Interpersonal communication. This is communication that takes place person to person. So if you're sitting down with one other person, your mom, your spouse, your boyfriend, girlfriend, your best friend, your cousin, your whoever, you and one other person talking face to face, interpersonal communications. And this is pretty common. We probably use this type of communication every day as well. Person to group communication. If I were standing in front of our classroom right now as opposed to sitting on the couch at my house, I would say that would be a good example of person-to-group communication. So me, I'm standing in front of the class lecturing to you, and you are the group. And then we do talk back and forth to each other. So public speaking, witness before a jury, minister, these are all examples of person-to-group communication. Then we all have official communications. So when you're getting these press releases and important information from the college, I don't know, about coronavirus and the school shutting down. Those are official communications that you're getting in writing from either your employer, in this case I'm talking about your school, but those are more official communications. There are different levels of communication, of course. Hey, how's it going? And then, when you ask someone, when you see them, hey, how you doing? Do you really want an answer? Very skin deep or artificial kind of communication. When people do answer you, like they start to fill you in on their whole life story, you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Really, this was supposed to be a real low level discussion, but sometimes it ends up very differently. Intellectual, heartfelt, or gut and brutally honest communication are also different types of communication that can take place. So skin deep, hey, how's it going? Intellectual could be argumentative. It could be you trying to argue one point against someone else, maybe a debate type of scenario. Heartfelt, this is when someone is showing that they care for someone else, or they can feel for the situation that someone is on. And then gut level or brutally honest communication. This tends to be my favorite, but anyways, requires mutual respect and equal footing. So, and I think a lot of people do maybe secretly appreciate this brutally honest communication. It just makes life so much easier if you know what really people are really thinking. So the process of communication, how do you effectively communicate? How can you practice your communication skills and sharpen them so that you're a good communicator? They have to be practiced in different ways in different situations. You might be really good at sitting down and talking to your best friend about whatever, but you may not feel comfortable getting up in front of a classroom and speaking. There are different types of communication. And in my opinion, and probably most people in this field, if you can't get up and speak in front of people, it's going to be difficult for you. So another key to communication is actually listening to what someone has to say. If you are in a discussion or an argument with someone, let's call it a discussion, and you're not listening to their side of the story, you're not communicating because you're not considering the information that's being thrown at you and processing it and fitting it into what you're saying back. So what are the elements? Blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of different ways to communicate. Typically, a person is trying to get a message to another person. But like, just consider this, and I know this is going to sound kind of weird, but if your dog wants something from you, I'm guessing they don't speak to you. Are they able to communicate their wants, needs, wishes, whatever it is, with you? Yeah. And I think a baby who can't talk, maybe they cry. That's their mode of communication. So we have a bunch of different modes of communication. Sometimes it's spoken words, sometimes it's gestures. I think the example I gave here was like flipping people off. You know, if someone flips you off, you get the message, right? You don't need the spoken words, but there's a picture that can also convey a message. When someone gives a message to you, your brain has to take it in and encode it or figure it out. You got to figure out, like if I flipped you off, you're looking at me trying to figure out what did that really mean? How, you know, and a lot of times I would think that if I flipped you off, you would think it was a joke because it would be because I would never flip you off. But you know what I mean? Yeah. So you have to actually decode the message. Blah, blah. Continuing process. Sending, receiving feedback. Sending, receiving feedback. Sending, receiving feedback. Sometimes symbols can be misunderstood. Messages can be confusing. We've all seen, I'm sorry, these are sources of distortion. You've all, hold on. All right, sorry about that. So, yeah, there are all kinds of sources of distortion or distraction, and there are many barriers to people actually getting the message and understanding it correctly. So those could be reasons like the message was confusing. The receiver only received part of the message. The receiver was not open to receive a clear message. Maybe there's a lot of people, a crowded room, poor lighting, interruptions. All these types of things can distort the message that's being sent to you. And oh my gosh. So think text message. A lot of people have issues communicating via text message. Things like, and I think we did talk about this in class, if someone texts something to you in all caps, typically you think that they're yelling at you. I do, at least. But there are some people that's just the way they text. But that is an easily confused message. Sometimes if someone's really busy when they send a text message, maybe the message is really short. And so they think the person receiving a text is like, what's going on? Is this person mad or something? Or so there's a lot of ways that messages can get very confused. Oh, that actually worked. Okay. So interpersonal communications, 3 channels: verbal, obviously that means speaking, nonverbal, facial expressions. This is like my favorite one. I probably tend to make a little bit too much by way of the facial expressions, and symbolic. Do you make a statement by the way you dress, by where you live, by the type of car you have? So these are all different types of modes of communication. How well do we speak? So articulation. If you are a very gifted speaker, then sometimes people are more likely to listen to you. I was watching a couple of news reports today, and this poor guy was giving a report about the city of Fresno and our health department, and the guy probably said the word maybe, I don't know, let's say 30 times in 2 minutes. And he's probably a really smart guy, but when you're listening to him and you're thinking, man, I could literally go on and count for days how many times this guy said it as I just said it, right? It makes it less. Now I'm going to start counting how many times I say by the way. But it made his statement seem maybe even less articulate, because he's probably a really smart dude, but he said so many times it made it kind of distracting to even get through what he was saying. And then volume and rate. Some people talk really fast. Some people talk really loud. And if someone's speaking loud, a lot of times people will automatically think that someone's being aggressive or they're angry or something like that. Now, and this is a cultural thing that I see quite a bit. There's certain cultures where people just talk louder than others. I can remember being at my friend's house back in Selma, back in the day, and her parents were Chinese, like from China. They talked so loud that I always thought that they were fighting. And then when the other family members would come over, it would just get like so loud in her house. And I was like, is everyone okay out there? She's like, no, it's totally normal. We only had, it just, everybody's cultures, obviously we have different ways to communicate. Blah, blah, blah. Language can be a barrier. If I'm saying words that you don't understand, how effectively am I communicating with you? Right? Okay. Profanity. I know I kind of tend to use this occasionally. Profanity can be used for gaining attention or expressing verbal hostility. Obviously, it is typically seen as negative to use profanity. However, in some situations, it's normal. So this is also, it's, just another way to communicate. Now, when police officers start swearing, people get angry. And you'll notice that in a lot of the videos that get posted by police or about police, a lot of profanity gets used. Again, typically, it is not encouraged for police officers to use profanity, or teachers. But as you can see in here, there's a few reasons why officers might use it. Whether it's right or wrong, I'm not saying, but there are reasons that they might use it. In order for you to understand a verbal message, you must understand the speaker to some degree. If President Trump gets up and talks and you hate him, are you going to take to heart what he has to say? And I'm going to say no, probably not. There are certain people, if I don't like someone, and they get up and they speak, I am just looking for something negative in what they've said so that I can, disregard their statement. So if we don't like what's being said also, again, if you are, let's say if you're a hardcore Republican and you're listening to CNN and they're bashing Republicans, you might be kind of disgusted and not want to listen to it. Same thing if you're a hardcore liberal and you're watching Fox News and all they do is bash Democrats. Same kind of deal. It's really hard to be non-judgmental when you're listening to people. If you all hate me, which I hope you don't, but if you do, every day when I talk, you're like, God, I wish this bitch would shut up. But, all right. I use profanity too. Sorry. Empathy. It's really important for all of us, especially in the criminal justice system, to be able to appear as if you care. Now, it would be great if they all did care, but it's even now with all the craziness that's going on with the coronavirus, and all your lives have changed just as much as mine has, probably even more, because I'm getting paid still. I think that a lot of you are probably working those jobs where it's like, if you're not at work, you're not getting paid. And my heart breaks for you guys. I do feel that empathy for you. You did not sign up for an online class, and I'm just throwing this stuff at you like expecting you to understand it and do well. The fact that I have empathy, which I hope you all can feel because I really do, I'm hopeful that that helps you receive my message better. Super frustrating time for all of us. So blocks to effective communication. Citizens not trusting the police. That's obviously a problem. They're not going to communicate with the police if they don't trust them. And they aren't going to report crime. They're not going to give statements. They're not going to testify. And this is negative all the way around for everybody. Police distrust of community. This is also a very common thing to happen. Police officers, not all of them, but they also don't trust the community. And why would they? And why would the community trust police? You know, this is a two-way street, unfortunately. Training also. Teaching police officers how to communicate with different groups of people, different types of people, could not be much more important. This whole concept of conflict management and sensitivity is not always taught. And as you can understand, those are really important concepts when we're dealing with law enforcement. They're dealing with people on the worst days of their lives, and they need to learn how to handle these situations effectively. If you are a beat police officer and a news media reporter comes up to you and wants a statement, you are not giving a statement, because you are not allowed to give a statement or you will get fired. Okay, so that organizational structure, the only people that are making statements on behalf of that department are administrators typically. So that's another block to effective communication. Scapegoating. This is, if you listen to the political pundits right now, they're all blaming each other for coronavirus and not having enough tests and for you name it. The scapegoating and blaming of others is a tough one. Number blah 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 blah. Yes. Discrimination. Why does scapegoating occur? Because we all want to believe that it's not our fault that something happens. I'm just gonna stop there pretty much. I mean, not stop there, but yeah, that's fine. Strategies of change. Mutual respect. Police and the community respecting each other. Improve training. Making sure that officers are very trained in effective communication skills is imperative. Police organization, reorganizing the agencies, and sometimes that chain of command can have an impact on effective communication. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, we just made it. Yes. Okay, so that was chapter, what the heck chapter is that? Chapter 8. All right. I think I'm going to stop now, if I can figure out how to stop.